Today's topic, it's a fun one. Today it's a little bit more visual. We're going to talk about HTML and CSS. I will just do a little introduction into HTML itself, like the most important things, the most important tags you have. I mean, you already work with HTML, right? I mean, if you did the preparation work, right? Did you?
Yes.
Nice. So you touch a little bit of HTML, you know a little bit how it looks like, what you need for that, how to display it on the browser. This is also something that we're going to go through again. And then the main block this morning will be CSS. We have a lot to cover, a lot of fancy new rules, like display flex, display grid, some animations, some transitions, and so on. Media queries, if you heard about that, how to display a website on different screen sizes, for example. This is also something that we're going to cover. I just scroll here through the topics. Yes, if we have some time, I have some bonus topics to cover. So, do you know what HTML is or what it stands for? Adrian?
Yes, sorry.
No. Hypertext markup language. What does it mean? No one really knows. It's just a text formatting system, markup language that we have, so we can write something code-wise that looks like code, and the browser can read, for example, that HTML and already displayed in a certain way. For example, by using a heading, it already knows, okay, this is important text, so it will show it bigger and bolder than a paragraph, for example. And we have a lot more information that are stored in the HTML file, like which is super important for search engines like Google. We have a lot of information in there. Yeah, so we can tell to the search engine what they're going to see on our website without really looking through the website. Okay, so let's open up Google, and as you see here, what you see here is basically the same that you already built during the preparation work. And if we open up the inspector, the dev tools, also called here, have you ever opened it? Mm-hmm. So it's Mac, it's Command Option I, or just inspect, and then you can see here what the structure the structure of our website, which is HTML. I try to zoom it a little bit. Now what you can do here is just for example, have a look. We have here the whole document. You see here doc type HTML, which tells the browser, okay, this is the HTML file, so it already knows what it expects to come. Then we have a HTML tag, which opens up here and closes down here. Nested in it, we have a head, which stores a head tag, which stores a lot of information about the website we're seeing. We're going a little bit through that in a few minutes. And then we have the body. Whatever you see between the body tags, so already also here, it's opening up here the tag. You see opening here and closing down here. And everything that is in between, you should see it on the screen. So if we go through here, we might find you can just open it because it's a lot of nesting that is happening here. We might find the image, for example. So you see here, the image is declared on that div that we have here. And we can manipulate that. What I'm doing here, by the way, on the right side, you can also do it on the screen directly by choosing this symbol here. So you can target what you want to look for. For example, Google search. If you click on that, it will be selected here on the right side. And now if we look for the text Google search, we can go into that HTML file and change it. So it's not Google search, is constructor search. The label is not enough. We have here other value here. You have different constructor search. Now you changed for all the websites in the world, you changed it to constructor search. You didn't. You didn't. You just yeah, you just can experiment around, look how a website is structured, what kind of different nested divs you have. Yeah, this is just a little overview on how to look at a website and what you can do. You can also, by the way, add nodes. So if we go here and we want to add something between the image and the input field, I think we just can do something like this, create new node. Let's see what it is. What is it? We'll just do it in the parent. Yes, so we have here a new div that we can move. Now, with the right click, I can edit as HTML, and now write something like H1, classic, hello world. And you should then see it. Yes. So you can really go into the site itself and change it for your experiments. You can also then change the styling, by the way. This is the second part of this morning where we are going to style it. For example, here, if I click on that new node that I created, down here on rules, I have the CSS rules that I can go and change. For example, I want this to have a color of red, maybe text align center. And this is how you can go and experiment with whatever you see on a web page and change it. You can also go here to the buttons and say, I want to have, I can just overwrite here. I have a border already specified. I can just go here and say, I want it green. Okay. So just a little overview on what is HTML, what is CSS, how can it look like, and this is what we're going to do this morning in a hopefully funny way than just a Google website. Okay, so far, questions? Well, let's have a look here just shortly. How this is starting here. We have the HTML tag, which, as I said, is opening here. And here we have, for example, the information about the language of the website. So it recognizes that my computer my computer's language is set to English, but it's recognizing that I am in Switzerland. So it tries to display, for example, words in English, but if I would have a date, the date formatting would then show it as I would be in Switzerland, not the American way, for example, which is super confusing. I don't know about you, I just cannot read it. It would show it to me the way I want or the way I expect. In the head, you see here, we have a lot of information, a lot of meta tags. In here, we have what do we have here, which is really important? I will show to you when we do it ourselves. So I think we just skip it for now. But for example, the title tag, which is in the head, we use it for the name of the tabulator of the tab itself. So if we change it here, it should also change up there. Google, we hacked Google. Yes. So the title is what you see on the tab. Then we have a lot of script, style tags, and so on that we are going to cover soon. So let me close this window here. Let's go to VS Code. I prepared here a file. And before we do this, I would say we just start with a new HTML file, just to show you how you do it. So in VS Code, you're all coding with VS Code, right? So you just create a new file. Let's call it, for example, index.html. It doesn't really matter how you call it, but a really important thing is just .html. So you tell VS Code that you're going to write the HTML file, and now we need here all that structure, the main structure, that boilerplate. And instead of writing it ourselves, there is a shortcut in VS Code, which is just exclamation mark, enter, and then you have the structure. So you don't have to memorize it yourself, how to start it, how to open it, how to close it, and so on. You just can go with that exclamation mark, and then you see the structure that you need for that HTML file. So again, short overlook, we have HTML tag opening, HTML tag closing. We have the head section here, which is also opening here and closing here. In it, we have the title with the name document. So if we would open this HTML file in the browser, which we will do in a few seconds, you will see that. What you also have here is this meta tag here. This is something that you have to write if you want to have a compatible web page with Internet Explorer, the best browser ever. Yeah, it just tries to convert so much it can to show it in an Internet Explorer the best way possible. I mean, the browser at the end. We just say that we want to, with this here, we just are going to say that we want to also support Internet Explorer. What you see here, something you don't really have to care about, is just to have the website in the correct way on your mobile phone, that is not specially scaled or so. So with this, it's just looking the way you expect it looks. So this is also default settings. Okay, and then in the body, of course, we can then start between one tag and the other. I mean, you cannot write it here. You cannot write it down here. I mean, you can try to do it, but you won't see anything. So you can just type H1, hello world, and then you should see it. What you see, what is happening here in my VS Code, as soon as I save, is formatting the document the way I like. And this is something that happens with Prettier. Have you heard about Prettier? It makes your code look pretty. So if I do something like this, or if I do something like that, as soon as I save, it corrects the indentation, so you have the nesting the way you want it, and gets rid of white lines. You can download it as an extension. I think this is the one I'm using. Yes, just Prettier, code formatter. Here is also described how you install it and how you activate it, because you have to change something in your settings of your VS Code. I can show it to you how I did it. I do it like this. Can you just type here? So just type up here and then look for JSON settings. This should be it. No. So settings. If you type in settings, you then see open user or default. Let's check the default settings. Still not the right one. Okay. So settings, and then you go to the user settings. And here you have a lot of settings, maybe not right now for you, but with time you will add settings. And what I'm going to use is this one, is editor default formatter. This string here, this is documented in the prettier downloads page. And then editor format and save, true, if you want to have it like this. As soon as I save it, it corrects it. So these are the 2 lines you need, if I'm not wrong. And as soon as you download it here, you should see it here. It's describing where to go, what to open. Okay, so prettier will make your life prettier, pretty sure. Sorry?
At least our code.
At least your code. Okay. Live code, sorry, not live code, live server. You know live server, right? So I don't have to explain that. We will just open this page now with live server. So just by clicking here. No. Page. You can do it, by the way, this instead of clicking on that button, you can also use it with this shortcut here, LO. So you just keep your finger on the command. I mean on Mac, L and then O, LO, and then it opens it in the live server, so in your browser. Okay, so this is the basic setup of a HTML file. Now I would say let's go to our prepared file and open up that file. If you have questions, please just raise your hands or just say something, also for the people online. So what I have here is just a short overview of the most important HTML tags. I don't think I don't want to go too deep into that because it's just pretty simple to understand. It's just, I think, good for you to have an overview of what is possible out of the box. What is a browser? What is a browser understanding out of the box? So again, here we have our head section with all the information we need, and then we start with the body, and everything you see in the body, you should see it also in the browser. But as you see here, this header thing, you don't see it because it's a comment. It's a comment. Okay, so write something here. It doesn't even need to be in a tag. You can just write something. You see it now here. And as soon as I mark it as a comment, again, for Mac, shortcut is Command Shift /. You can comment and uncomment stuff. You don't have to worry about the syntax and how to write this triangle, brackets, exclamation mark, dash, and the same thing. And yeah, you just toggle it like this. You can also do it with multiple lines, by the way. So if I want to hide this, it starts here, it ends here, and you don't see it anymore.
You know how to fix the marker, like now you're in the header line and just choose one line below somewhere below, so it takes everything, so you don't have to like draw it.
You mean something like this?
Yeah, but without like going back, just like going to the next line until.
You mean not this? You mean this?
Yeah.
How to do this?
Yeah.
Okay. So for the people at home, the question was, how can we mark, let's say, a lot of text, a bigger block by just by not having to go through with the cursor, right? But just with a few clicks. So we can just have the cursor here, for example, and then with Shift, and then click to the end of what you want to mark. And then you can delete it, you can comment it, and so on. Okay? Good. So let's go back to our tags. Really important thing is, if you write HTML, is that you structure your code a little bit. And for that, you have some predefined tags. As you see here, we have a header, we have a nav for navigation. So you tell the browser or Google or whatever that, or a screen reader for accessibility reasons, that that's the part where you have the navigation. So the browser already knows what you will have in there. You have a header, you have a main, and you also have a footer. It's down the structure down here. We have also a footer. These are like the main tags that you can use. There is also an aside, for example, if you have some, let's say, a side navigation, you could just use this as just for you also to understand what you're doing. Important thing about these tags here, like header, nav, main, and so on, there is no difference on the browser on the screen. So you can, I mean, at the end, you could use it. You could use only divs. A div is I always forget the definition of div. Do you know it? Division. Yeah. Division. Like it divides the codes. So you could also do by just using divs, but as you see, the structure would then not look great. You just have just a bunch of divs. So I really recommend you to work with some tags that describe a little bit what you're going to have in your code. So the next tags we are going to look at are the heading tags. You see here we have 4. How many more do we have in total? You know, 6 in total, exactly, which are just interpreted by the browser. So there is also already some styling in it. So if I do H5 and we change something here, you see it gets smaller and smaller. So this is the most important, and then second, third, fourth, and so on. This is also important for SEO, search engine optimization. You tell Google, whatever search engine is crawling your website, what is more important, what is less important, and how many. This is really important for SEO. SEO, no, SEO. SEO something else. For SEO, how many H1 should you have on one page? Just one. just one H1 per page. So you will also have a really good score from Google. So it already means that you're caring a little bit on how you structure your website, and you're saying what is the most important, and then you start then structure your website.
Why is it limited like only 6?
Why? I don't know why, but I think if you start working on a website, you will not exceed those 6. I mean, it gets really granular. I mean, it's really a tiny structure. I mean, there are ways to solve it, but I think after H6 or the 6th heading, I don't think it's important anymore. For example, for Google, on what are you going to show down that nested route of what you're going to show. Maybe if you reach the level 7, it's maybe the time to change to another page and make the 7 to a H1. That's when it becomes important. You also have a question? No, not even. Okay, so headings, H1, H2, H3, 4, 5, and 6. Yes, you see already on the right side what is happening is already styled. Then we have a nav, so we could simulate a navigation bar. As you see here, we have this nav here, which opens up here, closes down here. And in it, for now, we only have a tag. A tag is an anchor tag. You can use this anchor tag for links. So we have here this A with the attribute. By the way, if you have something between in the opening tag, something like this text here, we call it an attribute. So there's an attribute of that anchor tag, which is called href. It needs to be called like this, where we target where we want to go after clicking on that link. So I see this is still the old one. So let's change to the new one. Org. This should be correct. And now if I click here on the right side, you see that we changed to our website. If we want to go back, we just can go back. If you want to open it, no, let's look at this afterwards. There are different ways on how to work with the anchor tag. We can also target to a file. So if we have a navigation where we switch from one page to the other, instead of using a HTTPS, so an absolute link we have here in the URL, we just have here this relative link here, CSS intro HTML, which links to this file here. So if I click on this here, CSS intro, it changed already, but since there is nothing ready for us to see, you don't see anything. But this is how you then can structure your navigation between one page and then the other. Next example that you see here is more or less the same that we got in the first, so same as this one here. But we are adding an attribute called target, and then in quotes, underline blank, we tell the browser that we want to open a new tab after clicking on that link. So if I go now here on Google, it opens up a new tab and my other website is still open. Super easy, right? Then super fancy here is the mail to. So here is also, again, an anchor tag, href, and in here we have this string here. So mail to, with mail to, we tell the browser that we're going to send an email, to open up a new email that sends an email to this mail address with the subject, hello dear. And the text in between of that link, the text of that link is send me an email. So if I click now, send me an email, it will open up. It's on the wrong screen. You see here, subject, hello dear, sending to that email address. Okay, super easy. Just to show you a little bit what you can do with the anchor tag itself. Then next, why is navigation here? I don't know. Okay, let's go to the main main tag. We have here a paragraph that opens up here and closes down here. So this is the most, I would say, one of the most used after the headings. It's just a paragraph where you just write some text. By the way, this is also something, I think it's built in VS Code. I can just start typing lorem, enter, and then you have a lorem ipsum text. If you just need some text as a placeholder, you can just use it like this. So this is the most basic paragraph, what you see here, just a text that spreads across the screen. It's kind of responsive already. And then you can start and format the text that you have in that paragraph with tags like this, B, which is bold. So what you see here, up here, you want me to make it bigger? That's good. Okay. So B, this is a bold text. I is italic. And BR, what can be, if you look at the text here, what can BR be? What could it be? It's a break. It's a line break. Like if you don't use that, you just have the same that we have here. It's just a text. Then small, you see what happens here. This seems to be smaller. This text here, it just makes the basic font size that you had a little bit smaller. Delete, it makes this strike through effect, and mark, for example, it marks the text. I have to admit, I never used this. I never used this. Sometimes I use this, but just for you to know that there are some available. There are also other ways to make a text look bold. That's not the only way, but just for you to know that there are some built-in tags that you can already use out of the box, and the browser will then show it to you more or less than in a nice way.
Some question. When you are normally formatting a site, do you use them in HTML or do you do everything in CSS? What's regarding for example, weights instead of bold, or do you still use both in HTML?
So let me rephrase it for the people at home. So the question is, if I when I work on the websites, for example, if I really use this B tags, these I tags, no, I don't really use it. I do it in CSS by specifying, okay, this text is bold. If you have something, let's say you want to do this text bold here, I mean, it's not false to make it to do it with that B tag, but sometimes you're how to say, you're more flexible if you do it, for example, like this. If you use a span, this is also something that is common to use. A span tag, I mean, it doesn't really change anything in between here, but in CSS, as you will see in some minutes, you can target everything that is in a paragraph, or all the spans in a paragraph, to show them bold. So this is the way you do it. Wait, we can maybe do it like this. Very good, yeah. Font weight bold. Yes.
For example, in the header, we have, like in the Google, we have in the header also like a picture from the account. So if we want to design that in the CSS editor, we have to make classes, right? Because the behavior won't be the same.
You mean if you have an image? Yeah, like you mean if we have an image in the navigation, for example, like the logo.
Yeah.
How do you put that logo
Like
in HTML?
Yeah, because the others are all just text and links, I guess, and then you get another.
I will show it to you, because you can embed images or show images directly in HTML, so you don't have to go the CSS way. You do it directly in HTML. So it's not just text and links. You can also work with pictures. Let me show it to you in a few minutes. Okay, so this is the paragraph, and what you can do in that paragraph. You can already style it, and the browser knows more or less what to show to you. Then we also have lists. We have two different types of lists. You see it here on the right side. We have ULs and OLs. The UL, you know what it stands for? Unordered list. This is why we only have the bullet points, and within the LI is the list item. So you open up a UL, you close the UL, and in between you have different LIs, where you can then structure your content in it. Just for you to know, you can go pretty wild with these LIs. So it's not only thought to have a list of things, because you can nest and nest and nest and nest and nest things in the LI. So I can, let's say the last heading we were using was an H3. So let's say we go now with the H4 list item. Okay, and now in that list item, let me structure it like this. So we open it up here, we close it down here. We then have also a paragraph with the lorem text. We then also have again a new list, or you know what? Let's do an OL, and in here we have a sub or nested item 1, which we then can copy. Okay, you can really go crazy with this. You can also nest images in it and so on. By the way, also a nice shortcut that I use pretty a lot is copying lines. So what you see here, it's just with Shift Option. I mean, I don't think you have to. I mean, if you want to notice, take notes for the shortcuts, just take notes. I think it's more important to you that there is a shortcut for this, and then you can look it up if you need it. So Shift Option up and down or down, and then you can just add lines in VS Code. Which what also is pretty useful is is if you are on the line, it doesn't matter where you are. With Option, just Option, without Shift, you can move a line up and down. And not just a line, by the way, you can also take this whole stuff here, and you want, or let's say the paragraph, you want to have it after the OL, wrong shortcut, so Alt down, and now the paragraph is after the list.
How much can we do with the ordered list? Like, can we start counting from 0, or maybe 1 hour or something?
So the question is, how flexible are we with the OL, right? As far as I know, like built in, not so crazy. I think if you really want to have something special, I think you might have to go the CSS way, maybe JavaScript. But yeah, like out of the box, you can just really go here and make it count from 1 to 3. What you can do is here you could add a reversed, so that if you look at this, we are here right now. As we see here, it just reverses the counting, not the item itself. So this is still number 1, but it gets the number 5. It's just counting the other way around. And there is, I don't know if it's here. Is it? Yes. This time. You know what? You know this website, right? MDN, the web docs, our holy Bible. So in ordered list, let's see what we can do here. Reverse start. Ah, yes, we have start. So start, and then we start with 4. Yes, it starts with 4. Never used it. Well, good to know. A type, you can also work with types. So I could just type, and then we go for this kind of numbers. So 1. Yes, so it's already built in, and you can use it. But I have to say, most of the times it's something that you're going to do it yourself. But maybe I will change my behavior because I know that it's here and built in. Thanks to Florian. Good. So MDN, always good website to look at. So then we also have inputs. Lots of different input styles. I'm going to try to show it to you right here. And I'm wrapping, let's say this is a form for an application, or let's say the application you used for the bootcamp. It's wrapped in a form tag. So it opens up here, the form tag, and closes all the way down here. And everything that is in between is part of that form, and we will then use the input fields in that. To show it to you a little bit better how it looks like, I use a little bit of inline styling, inline CSS styling. This is something that you shouldn't do. You will see it then afterwards, why you shouldn't style your HTML in the HTML itself, but just for you, for showing purposes, I added here. So let's jump to the first input. Someone didn't like what I said. Let's go to the first input field, which we always attach the input tag, as you see here, and attach, or what do you say, anchor. We can anchor it with a label. So we have a label that explains what we're going to have in the next input field. So we have here the label for username. In the 2 tags, we have the opening and the closing tag. Username is what you see here. And then the input field. Can someone please close the door? Thank you very much. We don't need barking dogs. So here we have an input field of type text with an ID of username, and the placeholder is username. Here is what you see here, as long as you don't type anything. As And as soon as you start typing, the placeholder goes away and you see what you're typing. We need the ID to connect the label to the input field. So what we have here for username, this username links to this ID here. And this is really handy because if you do it like this, you could now click, for example, on the username and the according input field will be then selected as soon as you click on that. If we wouldn't have this, so or if we would have a typo, user num instead of username, it will not work because it doesn't know how to connect these two fields. What else do we have? So the same in the next input field, we have a label and the input. The type is password. We have a placeholder. And as soon as you type in the password, you see it's hidden. Adrian?
Yes.
La porta. Thanks. Label password, type password, you see it's hidden. And if you wonder how is it done on some forms that you see when you can show the password and hide it again with the little I, is something that you do, what you will see, for example, starting from, I think, next week with React, you can just swap that input field from type password to type text or number. This is the whole magic behind. There is no other thing. You just swap the type password from type password to type text to show the password. And you just have this click that it changes. That's no black magic behind. Then we also have here, you see input field with type reset, which doesn't need a label because it's a button. As soon as you use type reset, you see this reset button. And if you use this button here, if I click on it, it resets all the values of the form that it's in, it resets all the values of the form that this reset button is in. So if I reset it here, you see username, password is resetted. If you have, let's check some more things down the way here. If we reset it, it resets. Okay, just with this inputs type reset. Just good to know that there is something like this. Then remember me, we have an input type checkbox. We can have more checkboxes, but with a label. What should we add here? Languages I want to learn. Like this, and then you have the checkbox for it. Right, and then you, with the styling, of course, you can then style the way you want. And you just have this checkbox.
And if you would like to change every box like a different color or something, you would have to give different classes or IDs for in the HTML.
So the question is, if you want to change the color of each checkbox, if we need to use classes or IDs, right? I don't think there is a right or wrong. It depends on how you want to target these checkboxes in the CSS. And there are different ways. Yeah, it really depends. There is no wrong or right. The only important thing is you want to really target that box there and want to change then the styling according to the.
Like, just like that, we couldn't differ them, like, now all the boxes will behave the same, right?
Yes, yes, yes. With HTML only, like we're doing right now, you cannot change the color out of the box. Well, I didn't heard about that. Shall I check? You want me to check? Let's check shortly if we can do it. I will be really surprised. So input type checkbox is what we're looking at right now. Let me see here the input. Additional attributes. So for example, if you want to say that one should be checked from the beginning, this is something that we could add. We can add attribute checked, so it's checked from the beginning. Value and so on using checkbox. Yeah, this is something that happens in the CSS then. The styling. Then we have here the next one is input with type submit. So it's just a button, as you see here with this value click. This is the button we have. And what we are doing here right now is writing a little bit of JavaScript into HTML. This is something you don't really will use. This is just something that I'm using right now for teaching purposes. So I have here an on click, which then shows a alert, a built-in alert pop up with the text submitted. So this is everything that it does. You will never use it like this. You will then use it with React and write your own logic. But if I do it like this, I can click. You see this built-in pop-up submitted, which shows me that the form was submitted successfully. What else do we have here? We have radio input fields. You see here, input type radio. This is what it looks like. So do you like HTML? Then we have 3 input fields with type radio. The name is answer. With this name, we group this radio inputs, and with the value we can specify what you want to show on the browser. So with yes, no, maybe, see that only one can be selected as soon as it is in the same group. So as soon if I change this to answer, I can still choose yes or no, but also maybe, because it's not belonging to the same group.
With the checkbox and the radio, what's the main difference? Is it just like that one is round? You can click multiple checkboxes, but you can only click one radio. Is that
exactly? That's the meaning. So the question was if there is what is the main difference between radio and checkbox? So it's not only the shape, it's also the built-in logic. So with checkboxes you can check different boxes, and with the input type radio, like the idea behind is that you can only have one option that you're choosing.
So the grouping with the name is not really for style and CSS.
No. Yes, exactly.
How do you like to proceed if, let's say, you have a questionnaire, and in one question you can click as many checkboxes as you want, but in the second one you want it to look the same, but you can only choose 1 or 2, like the limit on like click 2 checkboxes out of those 5.
Okay, so if you want to limit the amount of clickable checkboxes, I think, I'm pretty sure you cannot just do it out of the box, like writing in HTML that you only want to have 2 clickable checkboxes of 4. This is something that you will then do. You will write the logic in JavaScript or React then next week. So you can really, for example, that as soon as you click the third one, you see a pop-up that says, hey, you cannot do this. Unclick one or two, allow the other one. Okay. Then we have input time. Let's just go through pretty fast. We have a built-in time selector here. So just try something. We have a type input type range. This is this thingy here. We have a minimum value of 20, a maximum value of 80. So this is what happens. The thing that misses here a little bit, you would also need a little bit of JavaScript for that, is to show the value exactly built in. So if we would like to have that, we would need to add some JavaScript. But just for you to know, the value behind that HTML would then pass to JavaScript would be here, the minimum of 20, a maximum of 80, and the step in between is only two numbers, right? This is what you can do with this range. Then we also have inputs type date, where you have a date picker. This is depending on the browser you're using. It can look a little bit different. Yes, what else? We have numbers. What do you see here? Number, input type number, placeholder, enter a number, and then we have a min, max, and the value. So if we don't specify anything, we just have an empty field if there is nothing in it, and if we can then play with these arrows up and down. But we can also specify like a minimum value, a maximum of 75. And let's reload it. Nice. So we cannot go down less than 40, and of course not more than 75. And with value, I think this is the starting value. So if we add here 45. Let's reset inform. Still not working.
Not the default value?
Yes, I was expecting it.
No, nothing is provided.
Ah, you mean, okay, yes. The value that is behind the input. Yes, that's correct. I was expecting to see like a starting value, but you know what? Let's check it out. What do we have here? We go to number. That number. A number represents the value of the number entered into the input. You can set the default value for the input by including a number inside of value attribute like so. I was expecting you to see it like that. Yeah, that might be it. What you said, that's behind the scenes. Number 45 is stored as a default value. You can just see here what we have more than that. Read only stat. Yeah.
Well, maybe you don't see it because you have the base order. You comment the base order.
See. Let's reset it. Yes, so the placeholder was in the way. So if you have a placeholder, you will see the placeholder. If you get rid of the placeholder, you see the value, which is the default number. And from there, you can then go up and down. I just wonder what happens if we do 35, which is not in the range. So let's reset it. What? It's still 45. As you see, it seems a little bit buggy. Or not. Okay.
For the range, how are the steps defined? I guess it's not in pixels or something.
No, just the value. Just the value. You can you can have 20, 22, 24, 26, and so on. If you want to read it out for your JavaScript, for example, yeah, you will only get those values that you specified like that. Okay, I would say let's do a short break. Then we finish with the input fields. We have a little bit of images. Then we change to CSS, which will be a lot more fun. 10 minutes? Yeah. Okay, so let's go to, let's finish the HTML section first, and then we start moving to CSS. I mean, I'm just showing you a little bit of input type fields that you can use, just for you to keep in mind. There are different ones. These are not all that we are covering. Just, I think, interesting to see what is already built in. And where we were before is like, we also have input type color, for example, that just gives us a color picker. You see here. It's also built in, and it depends on the browser, depends on the operating system you're running. What else do we have here? We also have input type email, which checks if you're typing in an email. And if not, it's giving you a little hint that it's not the correct email. Then we also have this input type file. And if you work with this, the only thing that you will see is this browse button with no file selected, that as soon as I click on it, I can just choose something like this, and then you see the title of the file you clicked on. That will then be, for example, uploaded. But it's something that you will then use React or a little bit of JavaScript to be able to do this. You just kind of helping you a little bit with choosing the file and showing you which file was chosen. Then we also have the type URL, which is doing more or less the same what we had here in the email. It checks if you are typing in the URL, and if not, as soon as you click submit, it will show you a little message that you're not entering the correct one. What we have here is the same input we had before with that on click, or was it type submit? So it's just a button. If you don't specify the value, I think it just shows you submit, if I'm not wrong. Submit query, okay. So it will send the form to whatever target you specified, this form you selected. The last input field I want to show you is the select, which is not, it's again not an input tag anymore, it's a select. We have here this select tag with the name food, and in it we have different options. If we have a look on how it looks like, this is just this drop down here. We have this first option, which is selected, disabled, and hidden. With the text, choose your favorite cuisine. So with selected, it means it's selected from the beginning. With disabled is meant that disabled and hidden, I think, no, it's not the same. but you don't see it in the list as a choice. You can just open it here and you see that's just the title. And then the first choosable option is Italian, for example. You see here Italian, Greek, and here the Peruvian dishes are grouped, as you see, with this opt group tag. So everything that is in between this opt group, all then again normal options that you can choose in that drop down.
For the browser thing above, could we already drop in the file?
I think it's built in. Let's check. So the question was if the drag and drop on this field here, if that is working. Can you take this? Yes. Yes. So I have a file that I want to upload, and I have this button here. I can just drag and drop it, and it will work.
Does it store the whole file path or only the name?
I think the path is somehow stored, but with that path you have to take that path and somehow handle it with JavaScript so that you can then upload it, really upload it.
Oh,
yeah.
And you can already push multiple things in, or
multiple files, yes. As far as I know, we can. Wait, hold it. Maybe wait. That's a thing. What's it called? File. Put that file. I think there is a multiple thingy that you can. I mean, with accept, for example, as you see here, you can specify what file types you want to accept. Yes, multiple. So if we add multiple, let's go back to. So we have the browse field here to file. If we add multiple, we are now allowing to choose more than one. So it take like more than one, and now we have 3 files selected. Yes, so it's a lot already there built in HTML. One last tag I wanted to show you is the image tag. As you see here, we have an image. This image is my images beach.jpg. Is it here? Yes. So I'm specifying it with this relative path, images, which is this folder here, beach, and then I just show it here. The tag is just img, and it's a special tag because it's a self-closing tag. It doesn't open and close somewhere. It's opening and closing at the same time. This is how it looks like. You see here, the closing tag is already closing there. I specify the source, the width. So for example, 100 makes the image bigger, 200 smaller. Also the height of course. Then we also have this alt attribute, which we, we ourselves, we don't really need it. But imagine you have a really slow internet connection. I mean, nowadays it's I don't think it's often, but it can happen. Then you would see like this alt image description of what image should show up. And this is also something really important for SEO, that you tell the search engines what image are you going to show. So if you're going to build a website in the next few months, and you will then make a check, there is a check on Google Chrome. I don't know if you heard about that. It's called the Lighthouse. So you can open every website you want, and then you have here in the inspector, you have the Lighthouse. which then checks your website. Analyze page load. For example, let's go to our page here, analyze page loads, and then it checks your website for how fast it loads images, if you're using only H1 per page, if you are using the alts attributes on the images, it's all checking all this stuff and will give you then a score for the website. As you see here, we can improve. Let's close it. So the alt is really important. Like if you don't do it and you let if you use a tool that checks your website, it will tell you you're not using alt tags. Use alt tags. Alt description for alternative description for images. But that's basically it. What I mentioned already in the beginning, we also have an aside tag, which is something like a main tag. It's just for the structure of the website. To structure it a little bit just by looking at it. Same for the footer. If a website checks your website, if a search engine is checking your website, it sees the footer and already knows, okay, this is something that is maybe not so important as we have in the main. So it's already separating the stuff a little bit. Okay, so far.
The width of the image, if you start in CSS now, what is added to it or replace it?
It will replace it. Yes. Pretty sure, but we can check afterwards if you want. This is, by the way, the width and the height is also something that if you check your website, your score will be better if you have the width and the height specified, because let's say a search engine like Google doesn't want to have, I mean, also you as a user or as a developer, you don't want to have, while the page is loading, as long as the image is not there, you don't want the content to bounce around because it's waiting for the image, right? Because as soon as the image comes, it will then fill up the space and the content will then be pushed down the page. And by specifying the height that you are expecting afterwards in the content, it will keep the let's say the user experience pretty smooth. It will not have any jumpings.
In HTML or CSS?
It needs to be in HTML. And it gets really complicated as soon as you have the dynamic images, of course. There are some different frameworks that solve it for you. I think there is also in React already something there that kind of adds it for you. Because I mean, it's really difficult to know exactly what size you want to have. If you give it to a client that will fill up the content by himself, herself, then yeah, it's difficult to predict that size. But there are tools for that will help you.
But giving the dimensions, or does it make it so hard, like, or too dependent on the size of the monitor or the size or the definition of the screen?
If it does what? Say it again.
Like if you have defined dimensions like height,
Yeah.
Does it make it your website less flexible for differences in your resolution of the screen or the size of the these are pixels.
Yes, exactly. So the question is, if we specify the width and the height like this,
yeah.
If it makes our website less flexible, and yes, it does. But for this, we have different tools that it helps us to keep it flexible by even giving the right dimension. But I mean, if you would hard code it yourself, it wouldn't work because you can never exactly add the size that you need, especially if you have responsive designs. Yeah, it wouldn't be responsive if you would outscode it. And for that, we use frameworks like React, for example, that helps us with this behavior of images.
Width or height would be enough, like you don't have to define both to like this, you don't have to it reads width 200, but don't check like how big is the image, so like it makes the width 200, the height.
You mean if we don't need to also specify the height?
Yeah. Because if we only have the width,
Yes, you have to specify. If you want to make it correct, you have to specify both of them. Yeah, exactly. But this is something that only search engines will not be happy with. Like for yourself, if you're doing your website, it doesn't really matter. You can just, I mean, you can just don't use it and style the width and the height of the image in CSS. But SEO, like a search engine, will then not be happy. But there are different ways to fix it.
Normally, CSS is not implemented in the, because online is a lot of putting together the codes from JavaScript and HTML. The CSS is always separate, or just some people also.
You will see when you start coding with React that you combine all of this together. Yes. I mean, React, if you write a component, let's say a component like a navigation bar, there are ways that you will also learn to have all in one file. You have the styling, you have the structure, the HTML structure, and you also have the logic, JavaScript, that it's all combined in one. But we are going really basic today, yeah? Easy, step by step. Whew, let's move forward because we have a lot to cover. Can we move to CSS if is that okay for everyone? All right. So time to open a new window. Let's open this. All right. So what we have here is, again, a really simple HTML file, which we will then now use to step by step try to style a little bit, or to experiment a little bit with styling rules. So let's have a look here. First, we have two divs and the span, which we will now try to style. In the styling, we can style something in 3 different ways. Do you know, can you imagine what ways, what possibilities we have for styling a div, for example?
Inside the HTML.
Inside the HTML, yes. Inside the HTML, we also have two types. Sorry? Inside the head, inside the div itself, and then we also have external CSS. So let's do first an inline CSS styling. So we want to style this div here. So I can just start typing style as attributes, and now let's say we want to change the color to blue. And you see already that it's changing. This is inline style. Okay. Well, you know what? Let's take the background color, so we see it better. Background color, then the semicolon. White text. Okay, good. This is one way. The second way is by specifying here a style tag in the head of our HTML file, and now we can target that div to style it. How do we do it? We have different possibilities. For now, I just take the ID, for example. I call this div test, and here in the head, I can target that div with a hashtag. So the IDs, I can target IDs with hashtag. I can target classes with a dot, and general tags like a div by just writing the tag itself, the tag's name. So why is it? Okay. So we go to test and say, okay, background color. You know what? I don't want to have it blue. I want to have it aqua. I save it, but as you see, nothing is changing. Okay. Why is it not changing? Because this guy here, the inline style, is, let's say, more important in the structure than the internal CSS. So we have inline CSS, internal CSS, which is in the head here, and then we also have external CSS. So if I now go here and delete that background color here, you will see that aqua is coming up because nothing else is declared. So we have this. For now, we have only two types of styling. Why don't we just add now a CSS file, an external CSS file? And we can do this by linking it like this. Link. Isn't it link?
Link and enter.
It's not working.
Yeah.
Thank you. So if you don't want to remind it yourself, you just type in link and then you see what you need. So it's a link with the attribute of REL, which is the relationship which we're building a relationship to a style sheet, and with href we specified the path to that style sheet. I have already one ready for you, which is this here, styles.css. So in href, we just go here. We can just add it like that. Now you see already we have a lot of styling coming up because in that CSS file we already I already prepared something for you. Now something really important is how these different type of style declaring are working together. As you see here, this is the most important. So for this div, the most important styling is the inline style. It's like it's the closest one. So if that's why it's listening to this, but if I get rid of that, you see it's starting to change. Now it's listening to that background color aqua. If I take this away, if I just comment it out, it's now listening to the CSS, which is the external one. So the question is what happens if you use the important tag, which you shouldn't use, but you can. So let's have a look what happens here. Let me open the CSS file here on the right side. So we have on the left side the HTML file, on the right side the styles.css. And you see here we have that div with the ID test with the class red and I mean, you can specify multiple classes, by the way. I don't know if you know it. It's not just one class, you can just with the space add and add classes. So we have red and W small. Let's have a look what it means. We have here different classes ready. So red is background color red. And these small, this is for later. Let's keep it like this. So we have an inline style, which we had one before. This is the inline style. I hope you can see. The inline style says background color blue, color white, and listens to that. Okay, all good. The next would be the background color aqua. Now let's assume that we have a HTML file which we cannot change. We cannot add any classes. We can only target, let's say, a div, and that's all we can do. We only have an external CSS file, and we can access. We cannot change the HTML file. In that case, we can overwrite or make a CSS rule more important than the one that it's specified inline. And this is by doing, let's say here, we want to have it really red. We don't care about anything else. So we just add the importance tag. So this important tag here is now overwriting everything that was inline internal CSS. It just overwrites it.
One more question, this important cannot override if we change the style of the JavaScript.
Say it again.
When we do the same things, one changing the style is important to the style sheets. Another way to change the style with the command to JavaScript. In this case, which one will override, the JavaScript code or the style sheet?
It depends which CSS will be read from the browser at last.
Yeah.
So the last one is the most important. So if you have different important flags, the last one in the code. Sorry?
Still the last important part.
The last important. But I have to say, try not to use it.
Yeah.
This is important. This is like a lazy thing. Like, it's not working. Let's try important, and then it works. And okay, it works now. It might be that you're doing something wrong if you're using a lot of important. But it can happen. Like I was once styling a shop, and I didn't have access to the HTML file itself, so I only could add a CSS file to that page. So every class that was in there, I needed to overwrite it with important, because you cannot change the HTML. But if you yourself have access to the HTML, you shouldn't need the important flag. But there is a way, just for you to know, there is a way to overwrite whatever was specified before.
Like just to the same question, if in the JavaScript there is no important, and in the CSS there is one, so CSS takes overrules everything.
Yes.
Important overrules, even if later on JavaScript tries to change something.
Yes, should be like that. Yes. Yeah. So again, sorry, the question was, if we have a JavaScript that is specifying some rules, some styling without the important tag, and in the CSS we have the important tag, which one would be showed, like which rule, which specification, it will be the one with the important flag. And just for you to know, there is no important and more important and even more important. There's just one flag. You just have one chance to overwrite it. Something else, just shortly, which is also super important, is the order on how you specify your styling. Let's get rid of the inline styling, because most of the times you will not style it inline. So at the moment, we have two sources of styling. We have this internal CSS, and we have this external CSS. And now, just as a short test, we specify here at the beginning of the file the same way. Background color. Right. It's not. Why not? Just take the yellow. All right. Okay. So we have now two sources of styling. We have this internal CSS and that external CSS. And now what we're seeing here on this div here, we have a yellow background. Can you explain maybe why it is, how it is? Like, I mean, I'm using on both sides. I'm using an ID. I'm also using here an ID. So I'm targeting the element in the same way.
The position within the code.
It's the position, it's the order in the code. So if I would now change this link here and take it in front of the style, it should change, because this was the last one which was specified. Okay, but the important thing is how you target. If you target it the same, this would be the way to do it. I will now get rid of this internal CSS, because the way you mostly do it is by linking an external CSS to your HTML file, and then you will start and style it.
I have a question for the anchor type.
Anchor.
There's a predefined underline, right? Well, we want to take away the underline.
Yeah.
Do we have to do it in HTML?
No.
We can do it in the
CSS. Yes. So the question was, if we have an anchor tag, which by default has an underline, how we can get rid of that underline? Yes, by using CSS. You could use target every anchor tag that you have in your page by just I can show it to you in a few minutes. Like selecting all the anchor tags and just get rid of the underline. That's the way you do it. Okay, what's next? We have here the selectors. Okay, so selecting elements. We have different ways on how to select elements. The first is by selecting a tag. So let's say what happens if I want to style all the divs at once. I can do it like this. Let's make it a little bit thicker. So by specifying like this, I'm I'm targeting all the divs and styling it the way you see it here. So in your case of the anchor tag, you would do something like that. We don't have anchor tags right now. Yeah, but just I can imagine you know what I mean. You target all the anchor tags and then text. It's not helping me this morning. I don't know why. Text decoration, I think it's none. Like this, you get rid of the underline of all the anchor tags at once. So this is one way how to target it, by choosing the tag. Then you also have the ID, which we were doing before. And then you also have the classes. So I'll get rid of this because we don't need it for now. We then also have classes like this. We have a class called box. which you then can target with the dot. Then there is something else really fancy that you might need it in the afternoon during the exercise. It can be, which is targeting, for example, the first div or the second div or every second divs. Like you can do this by with this pseudo element or pseudo selector, which is called is it first child? Let's see. I don't see any helpers this morning. I don't know why, so I have to be sure I remember. I think it's first of type. Red on red, we wouldn't see it. Okay, so this is the syntax. So with first of type, it's selecting the first div that that is coming in the document. But we could also do something like this, like div nth of type, then with the number, the second, for example. And then here the same. We take the border and add it to blue. Yeah.
That answers my question with the picture in the header, you know, with the links, because before I knew that, but I can find on the different divs with this solution, I started to make all the different classes and
I mean, it's better to use classes.
Okay.
I mean, at the end, because this is not really. I mean, if you use classes and you name that picture that you want to target logo, then you know, okay, that's a logo that I'm going to target. If you just go there and say a div, but the first child only, if you only look at the CSS, you have no idea what you're targeting. So what if you use IDs or classes that the name will tell you something, you might have a easier life. I'm now typing something wrong.
Yeah.
Ah, stimmt. So you know this stuff already, that's good. So end of type, second type of a div, select only that. And then there are a lot of fancier ways that you will learn in the afternoon during the exercise, like every second, starting from the third, every third, starting from the seventh, whatever. Can really go wild with these selectors. Good so far? All right. Now let's move to. That's the basic styling. Something really important that you will do in basically every file you start is resetting some rules, because the browser itself, already has some stylings in it. So as you see here, for example, I think that's the browser thing, is you have a padding. You see here around the buttons, a padding. You also have somewhere, you might have some margins that are already applied from the browser itself. And it's a good practice to reset all these rules by using something like this. With the star here, you can select every element in your document, and by doing, and just do this please in the beginning, if you don't want to mess it up. You have then margins, so margin 0, padding 0, and now you see that we got rid of all the stuff that we were seeing before, which were applied directly from the browser itself. Then we have the body tag, which is specifying which font family we're using, and the height of our web page. With VH, we are specifying that we are taking the whole viewport height. So viewport height, and VW, it's not Volkswagen, but it's viewport width. And color black is the color for all the text that are coming afterwards. So if we change this to white, it should change all the text color to white. Okay, then I would say let's go and work with positioning. Yes, let's do the positioning. So there are different ways on how we can position our HTML elements on a website, on a page. What do we have here right now? Let's have a look. We have a div which wraps us to divs. In the most parent div we have here, we have a class of box. If we have a look at this class of box, what do we see here? We have a border 1 pixel solid black, which is not true anymore because I think we were overwriting it right here. So let's get rid of that. Yes. So we have a border 1 pixel solid black. Let's do it maybe a little bit thicker so we can see it. We have a background color of light gray. We have a border radius of 10 pixels and a padding of 10 pixels. This is what is happening here in that box class. In it, we have 2 other boxes, green and blue. What should I show you first? So first thing is, let me see. Yeah, let's do the easiest one. Let's simulate something. Yes, let's take this one in the box here. Okay. Let's say that this gray box up here is the navigation bar of our website. And the main page is where we see the content of our web page. I made it a little bit bigger so we have something that we can scroll. So most of the websites, they have a fixed navigation bar on the top. And we can achieve that by, if we just have a look here. By the way, what you see here on my right side, the CSS file, these are just predefined classes so that I can show you what is happening. When you go and write your own CSS code, I don't think it will look like this with H small, H medium. For defining the height of an element, I think it would be more something like you target the navigation bar, and then you will specify there how wide it is, how high, the background color, and so on. This is just for teaching purposes, that I'm doing it with classes that only have one rule specified in it. Okay, so class box, let's see if we can fix it to the top of our viewport. I do this by just adding the class fixed, and now let's see what is happening. Okay. You see, it is already fixed because I can scroll a little bit. Red. So you see that the red box behind is scrolling, and the main box here, which is the nav bar, is fixed on the top. So that's the whole magic. But what you saw is that the width, we lost the width of the nav bar, and this is because it jumped out of the context. So it doesn't know anymore how wide was its parent, for example. And for that, we have to specify it ourselves. And for this, we can use something like width 100% or like this. Let's see if this will help us. So I just add this class here. And now you see it's stretching the whole box to the end of our viewport.
The navigation is normally inside of the body, or is it outside like that?
I don't know. It needs to be inside of the body because I mean, if we have here that the structure, everything and only what you see in the body will be displayed. So, and then the navigation bar at the end is just an element like a div or a heading that you are styling then the way you want and with the behavior you're looking for. So with fixed, we can use it like this. We can also move it to the bottom. For example, if we want to have something that is fixed to the bottom, if I'm not too wrong, let's see if there is something like this bottom. Yes. So you see that in the background, the page is still scrolling, but the navigation went down to the bottom. And if we have a look at the class of bottom, let's see what we have here. Bottom is 0. We can also give them some pixels, for example, 40 pixels. And now it moves the navigation 40 pixels from the bottom up, but fixed in the viewport. All right. Okay. It's too small. All right. So for the next positioning example, I prepared something for you that I think will explain it a little bit better. So we have two other positioning rules. One is called relative and the other absolute, and they work together, kind of. So what we see here on the right side is we want to have a different t-shirt in a shop, t-shirt cards. If we look here at my HTML, it's pretty simple HTML. We have a div with the class of product. We have the t-shirt with the H1, a paragraph, and a list item. My goal is now to style this a little bit and then add a tag, special price tag. Now, today, 2 for 1, right? But this tag should be like outside of the context, should maybe rotate a little bit on the top of that card. So we have to let it jump out of that context. We need to be, we want to achieve a free position. And for that, we need position absolute. So let's just start with the styling a little bit. I have it already here. Let me add that styling. This. All right, so this is the card for now. Let's have a look at the CSS rules I have. I have a width of 300 pixels. I have a background color of gray, a color white for the font itself. Font family is just one without serif. Border radius, padding, position relative. You know what? Let's get rid of this because it is spoiling what is going to happen. We don't need a border and the margin also. So this is how it looks like. And now you know what? Let's add a second product. So I just copy this. Now I have 2 t-shirts. So what I had before, I will just add it again. So if I go now here to margin bottom, where is it? No, margin bottom. Example. So you see a spacing between. And now let's go to the tag. I will just write it again so you see what happens step by step. So for the tag, let's give that tag a background color so you see what I'm talking about. So this is the tag I'm targeting. And I want this now to have it on the upper corner on the right of this card. For this, I need to position absolute because I want to be free to set to move it around where I want. So position absolute is the first step. The second step is top, where I want to move that tag. I mean, I'm talking to the parents. Sorry, let's rephrase it. Where do I want to position my tag compared to the parent, which is the whole card? So to the top and to the right. So top 0 and right 0. And you see now on the screen that something happened. It went to the top. It also went to the right, but it didn't went to the right and top of my card. It went to the top of the screen. Because if we don't specify to which element it should listen to which element it's relative to, this absolute element, it just goes and searches for the next element which is relative. And in this case, the next relative element is our body, like the most parent, the body is our next relative element. So we have to stop this looking, this searching for that relative parent. And we can do this by adding to the parent, not to the tag itself, position relative. You see what happened? It now knows where to stop. What do we mean? Absolute. Absolute to what? To that parent element. And now we can try and start it a little bit, for example, with the transform. We can give a little bit of a rotation, maybe more. Like this. We can move it a little bit more, let's say down here. Super nice, right? Would you buy that t-shirt? It's vegan. Okay, so far?
So the relative, the only thing that it makes is to allow to refer to it.
Yes.
Nothing else.
Nothing else, yes. Most of the time, yeah. This is the main usage. Like if you just use an element and you just add position relative, it's not changing anything. But if you start to style a little bit with absolute, you will then need it for an example like this.
What's the default position?
Default is static. It's called static, which just adds one content after the other. That's the default position rule. And by the way, in the afternoon, you might want, because we know from all the batches, you might want to position your elements of the exercise with position absolute. If you want to do it, you can do it, but it's not the right way. You will see it. You will see it. If you in the afternoon you want to use position absolute, you might be on the wrong path. Just a little hint.
And one question, it knows that the relation is to the product because it's in the product in the HTML.
Exactly.
Because in the CSS it doesn't have any relationship, right?
No, not really. Yes, it's because of the HTML. So this is the tag, right? We had class tag, which we were targeting to, and the product class here, the div, is its parent, which we then added the relative. And because of this structure, it knows where to go, or yeah, how to build the relationship to its parent.
And if you had like two parents with both the position relative, which one would be here? Like grandparents, also relative?
If the grandparent is also relative, you mean?
Yeah.
It just stops to the at the next relative that comes in the structure. The first one that it counters. Where were we? Here. Is that clear, more or less? So position, absolute, and relative, they kind of belong together. All right. So let's go back to the other file we had before. We don't need that anymore. We don't need this anymore. I see I'm running out of time. Are you hungry or good? There is another rule, by the way, positioning, which is super cool, which is called sticky. I don't know if you know it. For this, I need to work with this example here. Color white for the moment is not the right color, so let's go back to black. Okay. Now let me shortly explain to you what we see on the screen in the HTML structure. So we have here 3 sections. One section is here, the other section is here, and the third is here. They all have a H1 and a little bit of a paragraph. I did that because I want to have enough content that I can scroll through. Okay. So with this H large, I'm just adding a height which is high enough so that I can scroll through. And now let's add to this H1 class the class sticky. So if we go in here to positioning, we have static, relative, fixed, and also sticky. So if we add sticky, I wonder if it's enough. It's not enough. We also have to add where we want to stick that that H1 to the top. Now look what happens. That's just magic. You see what happens? So it's a combination between a fixed element and the non-fixed element. So it stays fixed on the viewport as long as its parent, which is the section yellow here, as this is in the viewport. So you see here that the second title is coming and pushing away that of the title. So if you want to have it on all the H1s we have here, we can just add sticky to this too, and also top, and the same here, sticky and top. So if we do it like this, it pushes away. It stays there as long as its parent is in the viewport and for the next same. And this without any complicated JavaScript or so, it just works, which is really cool. Good so far? All right. Now I would say before we start with Flexbox and Grid, because it's a pretty complicated topic, let's do a short break and come back again in 9 minutes. Okay. All right, guys, time to go to the last because it's flex, maybe last section. The last section. Yes, Flexbox. This is what we're going to cover. It's a pretty, maybe if you see it the first time, pretty complex topic. You have to work with it a little bit until you really understand it. I still have to figure out sometimes how it really works, but you will get there. Okay, what we see now on the screen, again, we have this div here, which is wrapping a header. Let's assume this would be our nav bar. So this would be wrong, right? So why don't we just call it nav? You see nothing is changing. And in that nav bar, we have 4 elements that could be, for example, anchor tags, because you're linking something, because you're changing pages. So yes, these four buttons, but we now want to have them not one on the other, but we want to have them spread on the horizontal axis. And this is where display flex comes into play. We have here this flex class ready, which just specifying display flex and flex direction row, which by the way is the default value. So you could also not specify it. Let's see what happens. I add flex. Now you see instead of that direction goes to the other direction, so horizontally. We could do the same with flex call. Now we are back where we were before. So flex call, if you see here on the right side, is that the flex direction, how these elements are aligned, is not in a row, but in a column. Okay, that's super easy explanation for now. So let's go back to flex, because now we want to play a little bit with these 4 elements. Let's say we want to spread these 4 elements through the screen with a even space between one and the other. And for that, we can just use the rule justify between, which at the end is justify content space between. Let's see what happens if we add this to our flex component here. Justify, how's it called? Justify between. Justify between.
Yes, you have a typo.
Thanks. Justify between. So this is what justify between is doing. It's taking the whole width of its of the container and spreading all the items you have in it in even space. We then have also other stuff like justify. Let's take around, which is space adding space around the item. So justify around. Okay, and the same happens if we change flex to flex call, which is a column. It still looks the same because it doesn't know how much space it wants to take in the height, the parent. So if we add a little bit of height to this element here, like age, let's take this age large. So you see now the parent, which is the pink box, is took that amount of space, and the items in between are using this justify around, which is this rule here. You see it, justify content space around. So it depends on which direction, flex direction you're using. The justify content rule is then justifying the elements in that axis or in the other axis. So we always have one axis, which is the main axis. In case of flex call, it's the column, the main axis, and the other one is the secondary. Is something that you have to keep in mind. If we would go back to flex again, now the main axis is the row axis, and secondary is the vertical one. And with these two types of justifying content and align items, which we can use right now, with align items, we can align then the items in the other axis. So in that case, right now we have flex row. So we are justifying our buttons in horizontally, but we now want to center in the other axis all the buttons, and we can do this by using align items center. So if I add now items center, you see now we have 4 buttons in the center of the screen. We can also use items end, so it pushes all the items at the end of that component here, not component of that container. Okay, let's see. What do you think will happen if I now change to flex column? I keep justify around, which means I have the space in between the buttons. I keep items end. So this is for the main axis. This is for the secondary axis. What do you think will happen if I add flex column?
Basically going to invert. It's going to be the other way around. So now the x-axis is going to be the y-axis, and the y-axis is going to be the x-axis. So probably it's going to be the opposite of each other.
The opposite, but where will we see the buttons? These 4 buttons.
The right.
Senor, at home.
Sorry, sorry. Like I thought you were already talking to someone else. Yeah. I don't know.
Where?
Just do it.
Let's do it. Yes, on the right. So we now change this main axis, which is now the vertical one. So this way here, we are justifying around our items. So this is what happens. You spread the items in this axis here. And the other axis, which is the horizontal one, it just pushes the items at the end, which is now, in that case, on the right side of the screen. Okay? So this is something you have to practice with in the afternoon. I think there is a whole exercise only around flex box, so in a playful way. So just do the exercise and you will understand it more and more. What I also wanted to show you shortly is the wrap function. Like if we go back to this solution here, if we now if the screen gets smaller and smaller, you see that we will lose a little bit of content. And to avoid this, we can use a super cool function, also part of the flex topic, which is called flex wrap. I don't think I have here a predefined class for that, so this is why we're going to do it ourselves. So flex, let's go to flex wrap. And the rule itself is called flex wrap. And then like this, wrap. We now add it to our flex container. And then we see what will change. Flex wrap, like this. So it still looks the same, but if we make the window smaller, you see it's wrapping the elements. So let's say you can be sure that the content will always be visible and not somehow disappearing because the window is the viewport is too narrow.
I think it was in the Google page, it has this wrap also in the computer, but it was pushing Not the element in the center instead of the element inside.
Let's see. What do you mean?
Yeah, over there, like where the leaf is good.
Yes, that's something else that is a little bit more complicated, and I think it's maybe it's not a wrap, but it's I think if I remember right, it has something to do with the this is the container with the order.
Didn't understand the question.
So if we look at the footer right now, yeah, sorry, the question was yes, if you look at the Google page and at the footer, if we make the viewport smaller, you see that carbon neutral since 2007 is pushing up. So it's kind of the same we had before with this wrapping, but in a more controlled way. And this is why, because they are using this rule here, which is called order. So right now we have the order of 0. And if you look here, what happens to that component as soon as we go wider, it changes to 2. And if we look at this element here, it has the order of 1. So you can order it with that rule. And for that, you then need to use media queries, which we are going to look at hopefully in a few minutes. So it's just changing the rule and the order. It's not a flex wrap in that case. I think that's the most important thing you have to know about flex. So you have 2 directions, you have column, you have row, you have justify content and align items, which you then can play with. There is much more, but I think for now, let's keep it like this. The next thing is grid, which sometimes will look similar, but well, it is similar. Sometimes it's not clear what is best and in which case what to use what. So let's see what we have here. We have a div which is has a class of grid, and in it we have 6 different cells, let's say, for that grid. And let's have a look at the rules. Okay, let's go to grid. Then we do it simple for now, and then we start to add stuff. Okay, we have grid and grid item. So we are going to work with these 2 classes right now, grid and grid item. So to work with grid, we will use the display rule grid. That's the first thing we have to do. And then in the second rule that you see here, the grid template columns, we just specify how many columns we want to see. And we can do this by saying the first column is 100 pixel, then we need 1 more column, and then 1 more column. So it's 100 pixel, 100 pixel, 60 pixel. If we keep adding, you will see that super easy, straightforward. But as you see, it's not responsive at all. It's fixed values. If we do if we have a narrow window, it pushes the content out of the window. And for that, we use a special unit, which I think it's only used with grid, which is FR, like a fraction. So you could do it like this: 1 FR, 1 FR, 1 FR. This means 3 equal columns, which are also, by the way, responsive. So it doesn't matter how small the screen gets, you will always see these 3 columns. You can also combine it, by the way. You can also say, okay, this middle one, this really needs to be needs to have a fixed a fixed size, so you can do it like this. So one FR is the same as the other FR, and the 100 pixel is fixed. You could also say 2 and 1, so it just takes 2 pieces, let's say 2 fractions. This is 1, and this is 100 pixel. This is how you can specify the width of the columns that you need for your project. Then there is another way to specify that by using repeat. Let's say this a little bit smaller. So grid sample columns repeat instead of if you have different columns that should be just the same, you can do it like this: repeat 5 times with which size 1 FR. And it's also, it keeps being responsive. The other thing is even fancier, because you can use it again here with the repeats, but instead of giving a number, you just say autofill, and as a size, you don't just give 1 value, but you give 2 values with the min max function here. Min max, which means this column needs to be 200 pixel width, but maximum 1 fraction. And what happens if you use it like this is exactly this. So it keeps growing. So without specifying exactly how many columns you need, you just say, I need a minimum of so and so much, and then it just keeps growing the way you want. So this is something, for example, that you could use if you have a grid for, let's say, a blog overview. You could use this rule here for having it for mobile, but also for a desktop, because it just keeps growing. Okay, so this is the magic behind it. Repeat, autofill, min max. And by the way, I will just share this file then with you after the lecture as a live code. You can just go through and repeat whatever you want to repeat. We then also have the other way around. So we have columns. Let's keep 5 columns. So let's go to 3, and then we have the same thing for rows for sure. So we have here 150 pixel, and auto, it just tries to, I think, just tries to fill up the space that is around, and then again it fixes a fixed height for another row. So if we now keep no, you know what, let's take this here. Yes, so this is 150 pixel, this is 80 pixel, and this just takes the space that it can according to the height of its parent. Just 3 rows, and you could also use it with repeat, same as in columns. So it's here. Yes, this is also good. Now, if we get rid of the padding, let's get rid of the padding. We shouldn't border. So we have now a grid that is not scrollable anymore. Is 100 viewport height. First row 150 pixel. The footer, let's say, it's 80 pixel, and everything that is in between is this auto that just fits out the space. So it's really handy solution for that. Then we also have a gap, by the way, gap, which gives us space between one cell and the other. There is column gap, there is row gap. If you want to separate the specification, you can say you want to have more in the rows. I can say row gap like this, and column gap. you can really go crazy. And talking about gap, which you can use with, by the way, also with flex. So in Flexbox, if you need a little bit of space between one cell and the other, you can also use a gap. So this is good for grid and Flexbox. And I don't know if you know this, but there is a website called Can I Use, which is really important. Because now talking about gap, you can use search here for CSS properties, and you see the global coverage of the browsers that support that rule. So, I mean, CSS is also evolving by year by year, month by month. And when they introduce new rules, it can always be that one browser is not ready yet. It might be that they have some workaround for that browser. But let's say if this number here would be 80%, I would be careful to use that rule. And you see where it works, where it doesn't work. So Chrome, Edge, Safari, and so on. Safari on iOS, and so yes, and so on. So this is really a really important website. caniuse.com. So gap, for example, was something that let's say 1 year ago was I think around 91, 92. So that's like a edge case. Like do you really want to use it? Are you? I mean, you can check here then the browsers, like what is your target audience, and if it's maybe mostly boomers that are maybe not updating their computer since a long time. You might be not using it. Depends a little bit on that. Yes. Oof. Great. Do you have questions to Great? If not, I think we just move on to the next topic, which is media queries. And media queries is something that you need if you want to build responsive websites. With responsive, I mean websites that work on every kind of screen size. A website doesn't look the same on mobile as on desktop, of course, and with that you can use media queries. What you see here is this @media with a condition in it. So if the condition is true, so if the max width, or as long as the max width is 450, then these rules are going to be executed. After that, it will go back to the rule it was specified before. So let's see what is happening here. So 450 pixel was the max width. So it means if I go now down with the screen size, yes, you see it's changing now to red. But you know what? I don't like this that much. Let's add some. Set back the padding. Okay. So you see here, the class box is only red when the max width is under 450 pixel. You see? You could, for example, now, what could we do now? A good example of this would be should we do it with flex? Yes, let's do it with flex. So I go back to my first example here, to the flex example. Okay, so what I want to achieve right now is that on desktop, I want to have it like this. And as soon as I reach 450 pixel, I want to have it the other way around. So I will just change here in the class I'm using for that, which is should be flex. I'm going to change the flex direction from row to column. This is everything I will change. So I take the flex class and change the flex direction from column to row. So let's see if it's working. I have column, and as soon as I reach these 450 pixel, it changes that rule to row again, which was the first we had before. And you could also do the opposite. Instead of saying max width, you say min width, which means it needs to reach a width of 450 pixel until it applies this settings here. So here the opposite, we had it like this, and then on desktop, boom, we change it. So this is what you need media queries for. When your project will start to grow, you will then have maybe different media queries. This could look something like this. This is, let's say 390 is for smartphones. Then we go up, let's say maybe 600 to tablets. And then we go to bigger screens, like starting from 1000 pixel. We then have, again, other rules. And this is how you start to build your website with media queries. Okay.
So when you have a website for mobile, it's always like that, or can you have like HTML? What kind of device
I don't think that's the best practice. I mean, I never saw it like this. That depending on the viewport, you mean you change like the complete CSS file, right? This is what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
No, you don't do it.
Okay.
You have mostly all together. As soon as you start working with the React, you will not have that huge CSS files. Well, you have to scroll a lot. You will have just snippets of CSS where you then can change with the media query what will change when you make it bigger or small. But you mainly, I mean, it would be a pain in the if you would have different types, completely different CSS files, because let's say you want to change the font size, you want to change the font family, colors that are belonging to a company.
Okay, and it's not that important, but when in your project you want to see the desktop version,
Yeah.
You still don't change the white. I mean, how do you go like? So
the question is, if you on mobile, there is, I mean, I didn't see it for a long time, but there is the possibility. How's it called?
Desktop version.
Desktop version,
Yeah.
like show desktop version.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that was working before, where you really had completely different types for mobile and for desktop. And nowadays, I think if you would do it, for example, for our website, I don't think you would see something else, because there is no desktop version, because it's all based on the width of the screen. So that, yeah, I don't think there is a desktop version anymore. Maybe there are some that are still using it. Good. Shall we do a little bit of animation?
I had one more, sorry, I had one more questions about
Yes.
media queries. So far, I've always used media queries the way you just showed them, but I know there's, I don't know, at least one more type of media queries. It's written in a way like, I don't know, add media, screen and I don't really know, when do you actually use these? I never understood it, because for me, it always worked the way you did it.
Yes, I think that is something that's getting deprecated. and I don't remember why you had to specify it. But you can really do it like this. You know what? Let me note your question, so I will get back to you. All right.
Okay, sure. Yep, sure.
So media reading. I use screen, and then I think there is also print or so. All right, I will get back to you via the Discord. I mean, I will share it with all of you, those who are interested in.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Let's go back to animation, the fun part. I will hide this one. So the HTML we are seeing right now, pretty easy. A div which wraps a button. This button has the class button animated with the text click me. The parent has flex, justify center, item center, age large to give them a height. And by the way, this is a super running gag. Like, how do you center a div? Nowadays, that's the way how you center a div. Flex, justify, content center, align item center, and it's centered in your viewport. I don't think we need the HTML anymore. We just use the CSS file. Okay, now you can just be creative with me. How should we style this button? So the idea is to have a styled button, fancy one, and that we want that something happens when we hover over this button. Background color. Just give me a color. Do I have a typo? Button animated, button animated. I'm in there. Okay. Okay, then we would say we take a little bit of padding, then a font size, big one, then a border radius of 40 pixel, border, and no border. Okay, this is our button for today. You know what? Let's add the box shadow. Pixel, pixel.
Add the pointer to when we hover on.
Yes. Let's see if it happens already. No. So the question is, can we add a pointer when we hover it? Yes, we can. This is just by adding cursor pointer. Do it like this. You will see that it changes. Okay. But this is just the default styling. What you want to do now is that something changes when we hover. And we do this like this. We target an element, and with colon over, we can specify what is the rule that should apply when we hover it. So for example, why don't we change the border radius to 4 pixel? Let's see. works. But wouldn't it be nice if it would be a little bit smoother? Yes, it would. And we can do this by just adding not to the hover state, to the normal state, a transition. We can then say what we want to transition, what we want to animate. For now, we just say we want to animate everything that we will change on the hover state. How long should it take? 400 milliseconds, and the speed. The timing, like ease in, ease out, linear, like how should the movements behave. Now let's see what happens if we hover. You see it's already doing a really nice job. Maybe a little bit faster, like this. In the timing here, by the way, you can use milliseconds and seconds, which I think is enough. I mean, imagine you would have 10 seconds every time you hover. So, okay. So this is one way how to animate stuff. But then, also, I mean, this is a transition which, yeah, triggers a little one-time animation. What we could do now is also add an animation which repeats and repeats and repeats. For this, I have it already here, but I would say let's do one by ourselves. We have an animation which we call shake it off. There's a song. Who is it? Is it Taylor Swift? And now we specify here keyframes, shake it off. So we give it a name. And in here, we can now say what should happen during that animation. And we could do this by doing like that. We could say like from, which means from the beginning to the end. And everything that is in here is going to change. So from, let's say, width of, I'm just taking something, let me see where we go. With 40 to with 80%. So as you see, it's still not working because I think we have to say how long it should take. And this is now just one time happening. And what I do here, by the way, is a combination, it's a shortcut. So we have animation name. Shake it off. We have animation duration, 4 seconds. Yes, and then we have without help is really a little bit difficult. Animation. There is a lot we can set up, by the way, for animation. So no, animation. So animation was what I was writing before is a shorthand, like a combination of different rules, which combines animation name, duration, timing function, and so on. What I wanted right now is the timing function. So if I go here and write timing function, I think it's going to be this. Not this timing function. Oh no, okay, it's linear. Then we have animation. The iteration. Animation. Iteration. What we want is infinite. Now it should repeat. Okay. Infinite. Count.
This is type of
Iteration count. Let's do it a little bit faster. But as you see, it's always beginning from the beginning. And this is also something that we can solve by using animation direction is alternate reverse. Alternate reverse. So let me take this. Okay, this is the animation. And all of these, you can combine it in one line, just calling it animation, then add the name, the timing. You can also add a delay and so on. And you could really go wild. Let's say we just have from to, but you could also then start by saying, okay, at 0% of the whole duration, do this, and then on 25, you do a transform of a rotation of 5 degrees. And then on 60%, we want to make it disappear almost. So we go back to 0.2. And here we also add a scale. I mean, 2 is equal like 100%. So transform scale 2. Ready? What we could now also do is when we hover animation, I think it's called play state or something. Play state. Paused. And again, pause it again. This is a buy button for my t-shirts. So I'm pretty sure I will have a lot of visitors, buyers. That.
Can you also add audio here?
Yes, you can. Yeah, it's much more complicated, but yes, of course you can. But not just with the HTML only. It will get then complicated. Yes, so let me stop this. We are done for today. One question is, do you want me to show you how to start the exercise in the afternoon? Or do you want to go for lunch and do it yourself?
Which one, the test or
okay, so let's have a look what you're going to do in the afternoon. Where is it? All right, the exercises are, so these are 2 games. Maybe you already had a look. It's pretty fun to use it, but afterwards you will then have to build or rebuild the website that you see here. Okay. Do you want me to start with you? Stop it. Yes, okay. First thing, you go to the website. Then you have here downloads this starter folder. You click on it. Click. Then it's downloaded. Okay, I downloaded it yesterday. It feels like a cook show. You know, when they have the stuff that is already ready. Like, I prepared it yesterday for you. This is exactly what I have here. So let's open it. So this is the starter files that you get. This is the HTML. There is already something in it. I will open it with live server. Let me close this for now. Okay. Well, you know what? I do it like this. Let's do the changes directly in the browser. I think that's better. With the inspector. Okay. Let's open up the inspector so we can have a look on what we see here on the website. This is what you get. A little bit of text, some icons. If we have a look, what else you have in the package is, that's the wrong one. You have some images, like the complete layout, the logo that you will need. And okay, that's it. So let's have a look at the HTML structure. We have here a body. We then have a main and a footer as direct childs of the body. Main and footer. If we look at the goal, what we want to achieve, you see that here we have these icons on the side, on the left side, and the rest on the right side. So this is one first thing you could look at. So if we open the main container, you see that we have here a site with a list of icons, and we have the section. So the first task for now will be to just make the icons, turn the icons on the left side and the rest on the right side. How could we approach that? So again, we have the main with two children. One is the icon container, and the other is the rest. How can we now make these two children appear side by side, horizontally?
Like those two to make it in no. Yeah, in the column, and then the rest in it will be rolled.
So with what rule? Display, then reflex it. So display flex is the first thing we're gonna do. So, and as you see here, we don't have it right now, but it's we have the icons on the left side and the rest on the right side. The second thing we could do is change the order of this aside container. So if we have a look at the solution, these are the icons. They're vertically. How do we go there?
Aside, like display flex.
Display flex is the first thing, so it still looks more or less the same, and then flex direction column. As you see here, we are going there step by step. The next thing, to have a little bit of space in between these icons, what could we use? As you see here, remember, is it are we justifying or aligning the items? The flex direction is column. I mean, I also don't know it, so we justify this. We justify content, and then we choose, for example, space evenly around. Okay, And this is how you are going, you should, I think, approach the exercise in the afternoon. You go from the most parent and just move slowly inwards until you have your website working.
Can we copy the changes we did in the browser to put them in VS Code? Like, let's say we like this.
You can do this. You see here,
Right.
changes.
Oh,
You have the changes tab, and you could now, you see here, well, the rule is maybe not the best. You see here, the selector is body, main, but the rule itself, I mean, if you know what you're targeting, you couldn't just take this and copy it. Or all this stuff here, you could, I mean, you could take this. Let's see. This is the CSS. I think it was main. So first display flex. So we go to the page, so still display flex. And then there was, if I'm not wrong, the aside. And then this is what I'm pasting from the browser with the changes. And we have it here. Okay. I hope I covered the most important stuff. Let me have a look. Yes, yes. Okay, you're free to go. Have fun with the exercise in the afternoon.